there, today I'm going to show you how to work up some of the embroidery and sewing for the mystery crochet along that I'm working on. I'm sorry, you'll have to excuse me, but my dog is snoring next to me. Before I got started on this piece, I worked up a sample. Half double crochet gives you this ridge every 2 rows. So I knew that this would help me be able to line up my work. Sorry, the yellow's kind of hard to see on this side. But you can line up each row of work using your ridges. These ones are actually offset on this side because of the way that they were worked. But they do line up very nicely to stitch, and there was a specific reason that I wanted this style of stitch. Maybe you can figure out why now. And so there's that. When we're sewing the pieces together, like I said, those ridges help us to do that. But to get started, I'm going to do some embroidery. I have Fragment C started in front of me, and as you can see, I've put these little X's on it. And to do that, I take a piece of yarn and I measure where I need to work. I'm going to be up here, so we're going to get that ready to go. And my X's are 4 of the ridges apart. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and in this one is where we're going to be working. There, I take my yarn and I measure 4 times. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and just a little bit extra. Find the center piece of that. We're going to start on our edges. Now, I'm going to pause here in a moment and zoom in so I can show you where to work. For my X's, I'm working in, here's one ridge. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then working between these, I'm going to work those X's. So I've marked those off with my thumb. And you can take your yarn, and I put it in this side here, and I go up 2 stitches. So each hole is a stitch. We're in our second one. And we're going to come up and then take your yarn and put it about halfway, and then you can work with your one tail. So now we're going to go over 4 stitches below, 1, 2, 3, 4, and insert a hook, and then count over 1, 2, 3, 4, and come through your 4th stitch. Now my tail is all tangled here. We'll get that out of the way. And then we're going to continue doing that. So count 4 stitches over, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom, and then count 1, 2, 3, 4. And for myself, I'm working between those ridges. So just below this ridge and just above this ridge right here in every 4th stitch. So we're getting our one side of the lines here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then count over 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can continue doing that over. I'm just going to take the other half of the strand here and put it in our needle. And then over on this side, we're going to stick it in. It almost looks like a stitch on the side here. You can put it under that first strand. And then remember the 2nd stitch, and this time we're going down to start. And then you count over 1, 2, and then 1, 2 for this one. And that gives you your X's. So we're going to count over 2. And then count over 2 from the ones that were already worked. Continue working that for as many rows as you would like. I'll finish that one up. And like I said, that's what I've done for this. This is Fragment C. Next we have Fragment E, and for this one we're going to be using the 3 circle patches that we had. You can place those however you would like. I'm going to zoom in and show you how I'm going to sew those on. I'm going to be adding on this next patch here, and for this one I have the short tail that I started with and the long tail that I finished the piece with, and I've done this so that we can work from the back side, looking from this side, figure out where you want to put your patch, and then figure out where that tail lines up, and you can stick a hook through there and pull that beginning tail of that piece through to the back, and then you can actually hold that underneath there to keep it in place if you need. And then we have the tail that we finished we can use for sewing. I just need to get my needle here. So for this one, we're already on the underside. I'm going to put my hook or my needle through to the back and then bring it back up through the top. Now when we do that, just make sure that you're not sewing that tail underneath. And then we're skipping about 2 stitches. Now I know you can't really see in the black, but we're working around the outside edge in every second stitch, and we're going to sew around like that. So we're going to skip 1 stitch, put your needle in the next one, bring it right through to the back, and then I just bring it up. Oh, we're going to bring it up through, I think that's the second one. I'll be right back, somebody needs to go outside. Alright, I'm back and we're going to keep going. We are working in every second stitch. So 1, 2. I hold that down to keep it in place. Hold on here, where are we? Okay, so this one. Somebody's playing beside me. She didn't even need to go out. Silly puppy. Alright, so I've made it all the way around. I'm gonna bring this up through the black. And then if we look at the underside, we have our beginning tail. And then we have some gaps. I've worked circles. So now back to this side first, because we have our yarn here. We have to bring that through. So I'm just going to look at the back side. We want to come through right here so we can make a line along here. So there's the correct stitch, and now we can work on this side. So we're going to go in right here. Just make sure that when you come up this side that it's in the right place. We're going to go look on the back side again. We want to come out right here. The next one we're going into is over here, making sure that it's okay on this side. And we're going to keep doing that all the way around until we have a full circle. That's not the right one. There we are. Going up in this one. Alright, so need to tighten that. There we are, kind of. Alright, so we're going in this one, I believe. We'll check on the back side to make sure we're in the right spot. And then we're going, we skipped a few extra ones on this one. We're going to go in here, make sure it's right on the top. I believe it's here. And we're joining in this one. Now, if you'd like, you can bring this over one stitch down to this side, and we're going to line it up with our beginning tail. And here we can tie our knot. So I do a normal knot, and then we're doing that double yarn over, so wrap the yarn around twice, make sure that it doesn't get too tangled, tighten really well, and then for these ones I do leave a little bit of a tail. And oh, I just lost my crochet hook. Here we are. We're gonna take that and pull those tails in so they're hidden, and we are done that. Okay, so I am working up some spirals on my red, and to do that I've taken a strand of yarn and I've stretched it with my hands out as far as I can from side to side, and then I need to put that in my needle. Now, to get started, I kind of want to work in this area right here, and we want to start a spiral going outwards, about maybe the same size as one of these two. So starting about here, we're going to start. Now find about the halfway point, and then we're going to start with the spiral. So I'm going to go on this side of the yarn, and we are going to go this way. So starting out with a little bit smaller, this is kind of our guide to where our lines are, and then this one we can start bringing out a little bit more. And then we can go here. We're going to get this tail over to this side now, and we're going to continue working this spiral. So use the previous lines to kind of graft the idea in your head, or you can go like this, where we'll take this one, we're going to drop this tail, and we can pick up the other one And then we're going the same direction that we were, but we're working the opposite so that way we get a solid spiral. So we're going to go to this one and come out the same spot. We're going to go in here and then come out that same spot. You can alternate between the two strands that you have so you can see how your spiral is coming along. So I'm going to drop that one and go back. Just wanted to show you how they were coming along. So we can continue working that spiral. We're going to move this tail over. And as you get outwards, you can also make your stitches out wider and longer the bigger you get out. So, and then depending on how much yarn you have, I try to attach it to one of the other spirals. This one we could bring down. I'm going to start working the other tail and see where we're at. I'm just freehanding this, so there's no real pattern for this. Oop, that one doesn't want to go where it needs to. Alright, well this one is almost out of yarn, so we may have to turn around with our original tail, or let's see where we're at here. And it's getting to be tight squeeze. You're going to want a tail to tie. So for this one, we're going to go in this side, come back out up here, now here we can tie a knot and then do a double knot. So start your knot and then wrap that yarn a second time. Oop. And make sure when you pull that it doesn't get tangled and that you finish off nice and tightly. Then you can snip right down. And then tuck that in down into the hole there. And we're done that spiral. Getting started on lining up our piece, take your stitch markers and line up your rows like I showed you at the beginning of the video. Make sure to line up all of the ridges. Once you have your stitch markers in place, we can get started on sewing. For myself, I tried to make sure that I did a stitch every single row. And while you're working up the piece, you can make sure that you tighten the yarn. Keep it tight so that there are no holes in between your pieces. Now, as we sew along, we're also going to take out our stitch markers, and you can use them to work along the piece. Now that we have our stitch markers in place, we can get back to sewing. Continue sewing every piece the same by lining them up with your stitch markers. Now we're going to add the yellow patch onto Fragment D, and I'm just doing this one with the basic stitch, so make sure you go through all the way to the back side and then through to the front without snagging the yarn, and just doing a simple stitch. Now for this one you can add some back stitching so you get the cross hatching style effect if you would like. Or not. So we want to make sure we go all the way through the back side.
And then for this one, we're going to go this way. Oops.
And we're almost there. Back to where we started, and I can fasten that off. That's all for today. For more crochet patterns, tutorials, and yarn shop, please visit my blog, dearstabby.com.